I'll be reading from my new collection, The Swellest Wife Anyone Ever Had, from White Violet Press, which is an imprint of Kelsey Books. I'm going to start with the poem Scioto County Boom Time. There was the coke plant lit up through the night with its dull yellow sky from the benzene-packed air and its cancerous paychecks for veterans and farm boys. 1,000 jobs they were lost in a year as the blast furnace shuttered its doors and the open hearth followed in time to make space for the vacuum. 30% of New Boston's school budget had turned into vapor as Ivy-trained men were selling the land and equipment like nothing. Then someone cleans it enough for a Walmart, for Oxy and pill mills, singing loud hillbilly elegies just for political benefit. See, too, the tourists getting away from Columbus through hollers of chip and seal, gravel roads named for my people that lead to the forest chartreuse with the riots of sassafras, oak, and young buckeyes. Skimmers are feasting in slow-moving cricks as the dragonfly naiads head for the silt or what shelter they find in an undershell bridges or limestone deposits, remains of the Ordovician boom time. And Scioto County is in southern Ohio. It's part of Appalachia, and it's where my family is from, even though I did not grow up there. I grew up a little north of there. And these poems are all based on stories that my grandmother told me, or things that I read in my grandfather's letters home from World War II, or stories my aunts told me. That phrasing is a little bit misleading because really it's more like things that I overheard. Because that phrase, little pitchers have big ears, that was made for me as a child. So many of these are ones that I picked up in that way. The Mosquito, 1936. The couple that wasn't a couple rested beneath the green leaves of the tulip poplar at the edge of the front field of her father's farm. There wasn't nothing tricky going on, not to hear them tell it at least. Just pals, that's all, just pals, working and laughing and praising the Lord. The problem with shade is it calls the mosquitoes. Everyone wants out of the sun for a bit. One landed itself on the strap of her mud and sweat-caked overalls. How long until it found its way to some sweet spot of skin? The boy in that poem is not my grandfather. That is not who becomes my grandfather. This one has my grandfather in it. This is called Confluence, 1933. Afternoon heat with mosquitoes in every small shady spot, she and Deet headed to swim where the creek meets the Little Scioto, down by Bob White Holler and out past Old Wheeler's mill house. Modest black swimsuits with no frills to speak of, they'd worked long and hard for the store-bought contraptions with worsted wool and a mermaid stamp tag. Such an extravagance, weren't they so fancy? Didn't their calluses spark to the chill of the water as they giggled and splashed in their secret world with the warblers and wrens, their sweet, stalwart companions and guardians? But up around a subtle bend, those hot ornery boys, they were hopping in, and would you believe were just naked as jays? All dingles and dangles with muscles ripe from the hogs and the hay. They would swear later on that they had no idea that the girls were right there. Just funning and sunning, a lark and a dare, not meaning to make a show of themselves, not meaning to scare all the birds away. Yeah, my grandfather apparently, Leroy was very ornery as a youth. Now we're going to time travel to 1944. It's called Platoon 339 leaves Camp Lejeune and is one step closer to the front. And this poem involves direct quotes from some of his letters home. He dropped out of school at 14 with a 5th grade education. He consistently in his letters, the word think is spelled with an A, among other creative spellings that he has. But man, he was a poet. If there's a good line in this poem, it's not mine. It's probably his. It was just a week ago tonight I kissed you goodbye, and now the whole country is between us. I barely made it back in time. The Sarge was doing roll call, the first of many that day, to be sure not a one of us run off from camp. Of course, some guys did, but they brought them back right quick to stand beside the rest of us Marines, like worried, well-trained, fitful ducks in a row. When I'm walking guard duty here at Camp Pendleton, the moon at night is almost as bright as the day, and honey bunch, I miss you something awful when I think I might have to use all this stuff I've been taught. If I don't ever see you again, don't feel bad about it, for you were the swellest wife anyone ever had. And that's where the title, The Swellest Wife Anyone Ever Had, comes from. And little comedic break here. There's a series of poems that are based on jokes that my grandfather told. My grandfather was gone before I came on the scene, but I know all of his jokes through either his letters that I read or from stories people told me. So this is one that was in one of his letters. It's called, this is That Leroy is Such a Card, 2, 1945. When his commanding officer asked if he'd let the enemy get away, well, no, he didn't get away, but I sure enough did. He's so funny, so funny. And this one is, we're going to time travel to 1957. And it's called Mama Says If the Cancer Don't Kill Him, She Just Might.